Now to developing news on the growing divide among Democrats, splitting President Obama and Senator Elizabeth Warren. They've been trading words over his trade deal. And now, ahead of a key Senate vote tomorrow, the president is raising the stakes.
The truth of the matter is that, Elizabeth is, a politician like everybody else, and, she's got a voice that she wants to get out there. And, I understand that, and on most issues, she and I deeply agree. On this one, though, her arguments don't stand the test of fact and scrutiny.
A politician like everybody else. Today, she fired back, calling for the text of the 12-nation deal, which is available to lawmakers to read. She wants them made available to the public, saying, quote, if the president is so confident it's a good deal, he should declassify the text. The president has called that argument dishonest. And now he's also responding to Senator Warren's claim the deal could undermine bank reform.
There is no evidence that this could ever be used in this way. This is pure speculation. She and I both taught law school, and one of the things you do as a law professor is you spin out hypotheticals. And this is all hypothetical, speculative.
It's one of the most significant battles inside the Democratic Party since the president took office, and is throwing tomorrow's Senate vote in doubt. The New York Times says it's up for grabs. Now for a debate. Let me bring in political strategist Angela Rye, who supports giving the president authority to negotiate the agreement, and Jason Johnson, political science professor at Hiram College, who disagrees and says Congress should have the ability to offer amendments. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Glad to be here,
Thank you, Rev.
Jason, the president says Senator Warren is just a politician whose arguments don't stand up. Your take?
This is a tremendous amount of shade going on for a guy who's going to be leaving office soon. I mean, look, the president has every right to argue for the additional power that he wants. I don't think all of his criticisms of Senator Warren are correct. Yes, some of them are speculative, but they're not unrealistically speculative. But I think overall, this is a healthy debate. I would rather have Democrats and Republicans debating TPA and TPP rather than the whole thing getting forced down our throats through some sort of hidden vote.
Angela?
So first of all, let's talk about a hidden vote. There will be no hidden votes and there is no hidden text. This has been one of the most transparent processes for trade agreements over the past 30 years. And I think that it's important for us to note that this text is now currently available to members of Congress, regardless of whether or not they sit on committees of jurisdiction, Jason. And that is what makes this an unprecedented amount of transparency. I think the other thing that you mentioned, which is great, is you mentioned shade from the president to Senator Warren. Let me just emphasize the fact that Senator Warren was the person who led the Congressional Oversight Panel for TARP. That is a role that the president entrusted her in, and he made her senior advisor to CFPB, an organization or a bureau that was stood up because of her recommendations. His politics have not changed that much. What has changed that much, Jason, is Elizabeth Warren's spotlight, and that is why this is tremendously dishonest and very, very scary. We need to be really honest with the American people. The reality of it is, whether this TPA happens now or under the next administration, which we don't know right now, could end up being a Republican, it would be really dangerous for us not to have the labor and environment protections and provisions that we currently have now if we turn this into over to the hands of a GOP president.
Jason, let me ask this. What caught me a little by surprise is that when the president said that this was highly speculative and talked about hypothesizing and all, when he was questioned about Senator Warren's claim that it could undermine Dodd-Frank, I would have expected, since Senator Warren and elected officials can read the document, for her to come back and specifically say where it, in fact, could do that. For her to come back and say, make it public, does that mean that it is speculative and there is nothing in the document that could connect to undermining Dodd-Frank in a concrete way?
At this point, I don't think there is. But there's two things to remember about the sort of transparency going on here. And I understand those who are advocates for it say that this is a really open process. No, it's not. When you're only allowed to go downstairs in the basement and look at one piece of paper at a time, and you can't record it, and other people can't see it in the room, that's not a transparent process.
That's against the law.
And in fact, 9 times out of 10, no matter how much the advocates want to scream in favor of this particular policy, you can get more information about ISIS than you can get about the TPP right now. And that's one of the reasons why people are concerned. So there's no reason for speculation. There are some objective reasons to be concerned about what this bill may look like. And the only thing we seem to really know is what you can see in a hidden basement or what you found on WikiLeaks.
So it's not in a hidden basement. And let me just emphasize this. Jason, I don't know if you've ever had a security clearance, but I did because I worked on the Committee on Homeland Security on Capitol Hill. All members have security clearances, and that's why they're able to view this text. This text is classified, which means it would be against the law to share it publicly. And the reason for that, maybe we could say, hey, well, this shouldn't be classified. Well, that same argument should be applied for the trade agreements over the past 30 years, which have all been classified. I think that we need to have an intellectually honest argument here. And by that, I'm saying there isn't anything that would undo Dodd-Frank. The fact that it could happen, yes, it could happen through a very convoluted process through a trade agreement. But you know how else it could happen? There's a Republican House. There's a Republican Senate. If we had a Republican president and he said that he wanted to repeal Dodd-Frank, by golly, they could take it to the Hill, pass a bill, and he'd sign it into law. They don't need to go through a trade agreement for that. That's why this is intellectually dishonest. As a brilliant lawyer, Elizabeth Warren knows better.
Jason, what about the contention that this, in fact, would put labor and environmental concerns in, and if we go down the road, they may not be in? The argument Angela raised in her last rebuttal. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, see, this is what we're talking about. Everyone wants to pretend this is speculative, like we haven't had trade agreements in the past. You had Congressman Levin that wanted to add the right track amendments to the fast track legislation that would require the president to be very clear about what the oversight would be when he negotiated international trade agreements with Congress. And they would still vote on whatever he did in fast track, but he would at least have to explain to them, look, this is how I'll protect labor, this is how I'll protect the environment, this is how I'll protect human rights. As of right now, we don't have that in the TPA, so people are legitimately concerned about what might be the case in the TPP. And no matter how much people want to scream about congressional clearances and this, that, the other, it doesn't change the fact that if you are given a bill at the end and say either vote for this or you get nothing at all under any circumstances, that's not oversight.
And what you just explained is not true, and it's not going to happen. The reason why Mr. Levin's substitute was not given consideration is because it was not germane to TPA. He had a substitute for TPP. Through the committee process, you have to have something that's germane. They weren't on TPP yet. Let
me hop in here. What do you think is going to happen with the vote tomorrow, Jason?
I think it's going to go through. I think it's going to go through. I think this is a bunch of posturing.
Absolutely. It'll go through.
We're all friends here. You think it's a bunch of posturing, Jason? On whose side? Don't answer that, because I promise to stay out of the debate, though I have a whole lot to say and will be. Angela Rye, and I'll be saying it. Angela Rye, Jason Johnson, thank you for your time tonight.
Look forward to hearing you, Rev.